Hey, this is Joshua, your cultural Catholic, with a Friday special, and it's basically the biggest thing that's been in the news the last couple of months or so. The so-called rampant sexual assault that's been going on in entertainment, news, and politics. This all started with Harvey Weinstein in October, and that was just a massive expose with decades upon decades of sexual assault and possible rape allegations being leveled against him, just all coming out, and it just opened with floodgates. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few, I think, important ones, but I'll have links to a lot of other ones down in the description below. I'll try to have it separated by individual. There'll be some videos. There'll be some articles. Really think you should check those out. They're really interesting arguments. Some I agree with, some not so much. In the video arguments, to be honest. And yeah, so like I said, it started with Harvey Weinstein in entertainment. Harvey Weinstein was this massive producer who produced so many different movies that I'm sure we've all seen. I probably couldn't name off any off the top of my head simply because his name was so ubiquitous. But it really opened the floodgates with the hashtag Me Too. A lot of people first just piled onto Harvey Weinstein, but that guy's been around for decades. And not that I'm saying it's okay what he did, but he did grow up in a different time, and I guess he just didn't learn that times change, and what works in the 50s and 60s and 70s doesn't exactly work now. And since that was just like embedded in the culture of Hollywood and politics and news, that just kind of didn't. It seeped in to younger generations that, I think, under normal circumstances, would have let it die. But that's just a lot of problems that we have. Another huge thing in the entertainment, and there'll be other things in entertainment that are a little bit smaller, but still are important to talk about and think about, was Kevin Spacey. I'd have to say Kevin Spacey was probably one of my favorite actors of all time. His performances were always so believable and so immersive. But I first of all, his explanation at the end was kind of like, I don't understand, and you're now, by including the fact that you're going to live your life as a gay man, it's going in some people's minds, conflate the two. And that's not good, because just because you're gay doesn't mean you then become a sexual predator, which a lot of crazy people think equal the same thing. But on top of that, just because he had all this power, again, didn't mean that he should have used this to such a horrible extent, especially with the first accusation coming when the person in question was a minor. Um, Additionally, the way I have my scumbagometer set, instead of a traditional 1 to 10, its lowest is 5 to off the charts, which is above 10. At this point, Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey in the entertainment world, they reach an off the charts for me. I don't think I'll ever watch another Kevin Spacey movie again. And there's some really good ones that I really enjoyed when I was younger. Some really good ones where he's part of the ensemble. Some really good ones where he's literally one of the top billings. I just don't feel comfortable watching those movies again, or any TV shows or anything at all. I was intending to watch House of Cards. Not gonna watch it. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, and for Weinstein, it's kind of hard. I should have the same standard with him, but it's a lot harder to not watch a Weinstein produced movie than it is to watch a Kevin Spacey movie, if that makes any sense. Um, Now in the realm of news, there's a guy named Mark Halperin. He's a veteran news guy. There are a lot of other journalists, but I'm going to only talk about two because I know of them. Mark Halperin, he's part of Bloomberg, part of MSNBC, part of NBC. He was probably a fairly well-known newsman, and he didn't know how to read a room or a situation, and that's probably being very kind to him. Um, what I remember of his story, it kind of just like got blown over with all the other ones. From what I know, I would put him at a 7, maybe an 8 on the scumbagometer, because he just didn't understand how to read a situation and ultimately understand that someone doesn't want the advances, doesn't want to accept the advances. And so ultimately they're just like, he's doing everything, they were doing everything they could to let him know, but ultimately it didn't go through. And then the bigger one was Charlie Rose. He's known as a pretty important interviewer. He's been around for ages. He has his own PBS show. He was on CBS This Morning, or the CBS Morning Show. He's probably one of the longest running newsmen and journalists that's still on. And his MO was basically getting the girl isolated, and he would only do this to people that he had power over because he had his own company that he produced the Charlie Rose Show. It just so happened to be aired on PBS and shot in Bloomberg Studios. But the people who made the show were his people, and he would prey on women that he would hire. And since he is like considered a legend in journalism, he would be able to get women who were in college or just out of college who were looking for a way to get into the industry. And having "I work for Charlie Rose" on your resume looks really good in journalism, and so he would use that to his advantage. He'd offer a guest house, which really wasn't properly furnished, and so they'd end up having to spend more time in the general area within the house, within his property, and he would just walk around with an open bathrobe, or kind of similar to Harvey Weinstein. And yeah, it's just no. For him, I'd go with a solid 9 on the scumbagometer, because he would just use his power and prestige against people who wanted a leg up, who were trying to do what everyone's told to do in America, to work hard, to take the opportunities you're given to get advanced. And actually, talking about Charlie Rose, I forgot, and mentioning Harvey Weinstein, I forgot about someone else in entertainment, Louis C.K. I enjoy the comedy that I've seen from him. I don't really watch his TV show, Louis, but I don't think I'll ever watch that. Now him, he would ask people if he could masturbate in front of them. Sometimes actually do it in front of them, but that's because he simply had a little bit more power. And his apology was, I think, one of the better ones of them all. I think there are only 2 good apologies out there. I'll talk about the other one later. For him, at this point in time, I put him at a solid 6 on the scumbagometer, because I'm sure he knows that he did something wrong, but he kind of tried to quash the rumors that were trying to come out a few years back. I think in 2011 or something like that. kind of like Bill Cosby did, and Cosby is an off the chart scumbag. Um, but he was probably one of the nicer guys who did this, but I don't. It's completely unacceptable. Now going into politics. Um, First is Senator Al Franken. Full disclosure, he was the first senator I could actually vote for in 2010. I just turned 18. What I knew of him, he's good in committee, especially in when the committees are asking questions. He's really tough. He knew how to ask the right questions, how to have his staff research for the right questions to make sure that um, that they were able to take people to task. So not as progressive as I would have liked, but he was a good legislator, really did care about the people. And while the picture is damning and a lot of the other accusations that are coming out are damning, it's not as damning as, well, the accusations are equally damning, but the first thing that is associated with the first accusation, how he basically kissed a woman against her will, that for me, again, most damning. The picture took away from it, I think, personally. Now, Sam Cedar on the majority report said that if Mark Dayton wasn't governor, he shouldn't step down. Personally, I don't care. I would much rather have a crazy Republican, not as crazy as Roy Moore, a crazy Republican representing. Actually, better statement. I'd much rather have Norm Coleman brought back from the political dead and made my Senate. I'm using air quotes in my head because I now live in Utah. I'd much rather have Norm Coleman be my senator than Al Franken. And Al Franken's apology was one of the better apologies. And solid 6 on the scumbag meter. I think he should step down. Personally, I think Keith Ellison should be put in his place. Should replace Al Franken because the district that Keith Ellison represents is a solid blue district. I know I seem a little teamy here, but I'm sure they could elect a pretty progressive representative from Ellison's district, and Ellison is a very progressive guy himself. So I would be very happy, and if Roy Moore ends up being a senator, it'd be really funny, because Roy Moore doesn't believe that Muslims should be in government. Now, speaking of Roy Moore, he's another important one. He's had multiple accusations of molestation, one of attempted rape. He's known for dating girls who were teenagers. Kind of creepy because he was in his 30s at the time. And at least one of the girls, because age of consent in Alabama is 16, at least one of the girls was 14. And I have to will myself to not hurl because that's so disgusting. And he's been unapologetic, and he's been he and his defenders have been trying to discredit the piece, discredit the women who've stepped forward. The political hit job, they looked like they were 20. Fake reporter calling in a stereotypical Jewish voice with a stereotypical Jewish name. They've actually used Breitbart to try to intimidate the women or defend Roy Moore on TV. And again, he's denied it up and down. On top of that, on top of that, yeah, he's a homophobe. He's an Islamophobe. He's denying the accusations. And these women are Trump voters. So if they can vote for that p-word grabbing douchebag, um, it's kind of surprising that they're drawing a line at Roy Moore for me personally. Um, but that's just me personally. Um, Possibly we could have Doug Jones, who prosecuted the KKK after the Birmingham church bombing, which killed 3 little girls. Um, that would be good. Granted, he's a standard establishment Democrat, but he would be preferable to crazy Roy Moore. And Donald Trump's come to his defense, which no surprise. And then another big name that's come out that in politics at least is Representative Don Conyers. He's from Detroit, Michigan. He's actually a fairly progressive legislator. He's introduced Medicare for All bill, which I agree with, but he has also been accused of sexual misconduct. And on top of that, he is also probably going to go under. He did something that is probably unethical, I think illegal, by paying her off using his own office budget, which is, if I remember correctly, not exactly standard procedure, to put it mildly. Um, and for him, he'd be a solid 8. No, 7. Yeah, 7. Um, but yeah, it's good that more of this is coming out. I want more of it to come out so that we can have the conversations of why it's taken so long for some people, that it can happen to men, that women can be sexual assaulters and rapists and do sexual misconduct as well. We need these conversations because this is one of the, I think, the only set of crimes where the victim is blamed just as often, if not more, than the perpetrator. And that really does need to change. This is also a pre-recorded video. A lot of these resources will be a little old and probably be outdated, and I'll probably be updated stuff by the time this airs. This is Josh with Cultural Catholics signing off on the Friday special.